After 2 weeks, the Oklahoma Sooners have perfected the idea of playing down to your opponent and the idea of winning ugly. Thanks for joining in, everybody. This is Boomer Breakdown. Oklahoma 23, Nebraska 16. And I said after 2 weeks. I meant after 3 weeks, but 2 out of 3 weeks. Very uninspired, very inconsistent football from Oklahoma. I think a lot of the talk that we had last week was really centered around Oklahoma looking much better, I think, in all facets of the game. And then in a lot of ways, Oklahoma regressed back to the way they played against Tulane today. Very inconsistent throughout the entire game. I don't know. I mean, I think as Oklahoma fans watching this game, you have to be a little frustrated, and you have to wonder what the ceiling is for this team. I think coming into the season, a lot of us covering Oklahoma, a lot of us fans of Oklahoma thought that this was Lincoln Riley's best team. This was Oklahoma's best opportunity to both win a playoff game and possibly make it to a national championship game. However, today, Nebraska had several mistakes. I believe there was 4 false start penalties by the offensive line. I think there was 2 unsportsmanlike penalties by their offensive line as well. I think there was 2 missed field goals for Nebraska. One, obviously, the big extra point miss where Oklahoma was able to bring it back for the 2-point conversion in that when I believe the game would have been a 14-10 game at that point. So a lot of things to unpack, a lot of things to talk through here today as Oklahoma survives. That's the only way that I would say, and just a very, like I said, very up and down, inconsistent from all areas of the team, offense to defense overall. So welcome in. Come on, hit the share, hit the like button. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at JasonRay1. We'll tweet out updates and stuff like that as we go live, and then obviously talking about today's game specifically. So tell your friends, family, coworkers, come join us, and we'll talk some Oklahoma football. A lot of times there's more comments and more things to talk about when Oklahoma plays bad. So I think just kind of running down the stats, and we'll look through the stats here, and then I'll kind of talk through some of my initial observations from today's game. So from a total perspective, Oklahoma 21 first downs, Nebraska 18. Oklahoma 408 total yards, Nebraska 384 in the passing game. And again, this was something that's surprising, and really never would have guessed that Nebraska would throw for more yards than Oklahoma. 289 yards and throwing for Adrian Martinez, 19 out of 25. 214 yards through the air for Oklahoma, 24 out of 34. Yards per pass, 11.6 for Nebraska, 6.3 for Oklahoma. Running the ball, Oklahoma, it's one of the bright spots that I'll talk about. 35 carries for 194 yards, 7 penalties, 70 yards. So, total yards was pretty even, pretty close. 408 for Oklahoma, 384 for Nebraska. Individually, we talked a little bit about Spencer Rattler. The running backs, I thought Eric Gray and Kennedy Brooks ran the ball really well. Offensive line played really well for the most part. Eric Gray, 15 carries for 84 yards. Kennedy Brooks, 14 carries for 75 yards and a touchdown. Receiving, Jaden Hazelwood led the receiving for 6 catches for 61 yards. So now overall, I thought Spencer Rattler was still pretty bad. I think decision-making was very poor at times in the first half. There was 2 situations where he tried to force feed the ball deep into Mario Williams. and he was triple covered on both occasions. Late in the first half, I even said I wouldn't mind if Oklahoma put in Caleb Williams for a series just to calm him down a little bit. I think I made this comparison after Tulane and talked a little bit about it during that game that Spencer Rattler looks to me like he's much kind of in the same vein as a Landry Jones in terms of just his decision making with the football from time to time is just it's bad, and it's not really getting much better. Oklahoma he did much better through the last half of the year, and then 2 out of 3 games here, he's made really bad decisions with the ball. He's not trusting the pocket. He's quick to leave, and when he leaves, he doesn't step up. He goes to the side and makes himself throw off his back foot, and he just trusts his arm and trusts his ability way too much. So, like I said, I wouldn't have taken him out for the entire game, but I felt that Oklahoma could have probably made that decision to take him out, for a series or 2 just to calm him down later in the first half. And then, like I said, offensively, I think the skill position players outside of that, I felt like that they played well. I felt like I said, Eric Gray and Kennedy Brooks were solid. I felt like Oklahoma probably should have run the ball a little bit more in the first half. They started to, maybe a little bit more in the second half. Was better, but still wasn't what you would expect out of an Oklahoma team. 19 points in the second half. 16 points in the second half. It's still not good enough. I think, that, like I said, Hazelwood played well. Marvin Mims, only 2 catches for 32 yards. But Drake Stoops had a couple of catches for 31 yards. Mario Williams and Mike Woods, 3 catches each, 29 yards and 24 yards respectively. So, defensively, one of the things that I was a little bit concerned about is the ability to keep Adrian Martinez in the pocket. They did a little bit better job there than I thought that they would. Only 17 carries for 34 yards for Adrian Martinez, so they kept him bottled up for the most part. Run defense was solid, 2.5 yards per carry. I think 38 carries, 95 yards. I don't think there's much. I think in terms of the back end coverage, it was a little poor at times, but I take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, given the fact that Oklahoma had so many guys out in the secondary. We knew coming into this game without Woody Washington, without Billy Bowman, that they would struggle a little bit, and then just inconsistency in the coverage. A microcosm of that inconsistency was from DJ Graham. He got beat on that long pass play, but then a couple of plays later made one of the best interceptions that you'll ever see. So I think that inconsistency can get better. And again, it's just they didn't finish offensively well at all. I will say defensively, that last series, Oklahoma was about as dominant as you could expect on the defensive line. So I think overall, a lot to be concerned about. Again, very similar to Tulane. A win is a win. It's better than a loss, but this team has a lot to work on, and you wonder about the ceiling. You wonder if this Oklahoma team has a ceiling of a Big 12 championship game win, another Big 12 championship. When you look at Oklahoma when you compare them against the Georgia, against the Alabama, thus far through 2 games, we'll see what those 2 teams do today, specifically Alabama kicking off here pretty soon if they haven't already against Florida. But Ohio State, all of those teams are better than Oklahoma offensively. And I think traditionally that's been the calling card for the Sooners is they've been able to rely on how good they are offensively. And it's just not whatever it is, it's just not clicking through 8 real quarters of football for Oklahoma. It's just not what you would expect. It's not the offensive, like I said, the offensive line and the skill position players haven't been bad at all. I think like I said, Kennedy Brooks and Eric Gray has been everything that you wanted. From a play calling perspective, I don't know if Riley is just concerned with losing one of those kids and is ultra conservative early on. I think, moving forward, Oklahoma might, obviously the defense dictates exactly what this looks like, but I think you might look to rely on that running game a little bit more with a guy that coming into this season for Oklahoma as a Heisman Trophy candidate, a Heisman Trophy front runner, and he has not played up to that standard so far for Oklahoma. That Oklahoma fans, I think probably coaches, and everyone would have expected. So coming into this game, I thought that Oklahoma would play well. I thought the 22 points was a lot, but I think also at the end of the day, I thought Oklahoma would get close to that 20 I predicted on our pregame show. If you guys listen, 41-20, so maybe a little bit better defensively than I thought they would play, but not near what you would expect and what you need as a national championship and a playoff team for Oklahoma this year. It's just they've got a lot of work to do, I think, offensively, and like I said, you wonder what the trajectory of this team can be. Is this still a team you think it can make it to the playoffs? Is this a team that can win the championship? Can they improve enough from here on out to do these things and not really play down to the level of the competition? We'll see. It gets better, like I said, each and every week here for the next few weeks. The competition gets better. West Virginia, I believe if it's not final, they did beat Virginia Tech today 27-21. So a much better team. Well, I'm not going to say much better. A better team than Nebraska is on both sides of the ball, probably. And then you have Kansas State, which maybe not necessarily a better team than West Virginia, but that game's on the road. And then obviously you have Red River with Texas. So got a lot to figure out in a hurry. So tell me what's your questions? What's your thoughts after this team? Where would you rank Oklahoma right now if the ranking started fresh today? Where would you rank Oklahoma? What are your can this team get to the playoffs, or is this team maybe a Big 12 championship team only? Any questions or anything you have, and we'll go through those and we'll address those comments through the remainder of the time that we go to. Third down defense was incredibly frustrating. They had them third and long on many occasions. And then let them off the hook. I think that's fair. 6 out of 14 overall for Nebraska on third down conversions. I mean, it's okay. It's not what they've been accustomed to, Ryan, to your point, over the last couple of years under Grinch. I think that's frustrating. However, we've got to put most of the onus here on the offense. I think the defense, if they give up 16 to 21 points, you would expect this team to win pretty comfortably with the talent that this team has on offense. I think they need to get better on third down, and I think the back end coverage needs to get better. But I think more the concern for me would be on the offense. Hope you're not going to talk about how good this team is, or is going to be. They don't look like a top team. Very disappointing. Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that we talked early on. I don't think I've talked too much about how good overall the team is. I mean, there's a couple of individuals on the offensive side of the ball that played well, but I think overall as an offensive unit, they didn't play incredibly well. I think it took Riley too long to adjust, just quite honestly, to that soft zone, and it's something that Rattler needs to be able to pick up. He's got to continue to make better decisions. If you see another game or two like this out of him, I told a couple of you I thought you were a little crazy for talking about Caleb Williams getting some playing time. However, if Rattler continues to make bad decisions, he continues to to not have the pocket presence that he needs, stepping up versus going to the side and backpedaling. I think it's a continued concern. Yeah, that's a good point. Patrick has been really conservative. I think didn't really blame the play calling too much against Tulane. I thought he was fine. I don't know that the play calling was bad there. Was really bad. I think, but today it was worse. I think today was very conservative. It took him a half to adjust. I think what you're going to see against some of these better teams that they play, especially if they're fortunate enough to make it through the Big 12 and make it to the playoffs, is you're going to see it's going to be a little. If it takes him a half to adjust, you're going to have more problems, I think. So yeah, the conservativeness has been something that Riley has had overall, but yeah, I think that's fair. For whatever reason, whether it's Riley, whether it's Rattler, whether it's whatever, you worry about, is he too focused on the NIL stuff? I think that's part of it. I think just in general, the team has read their press clippings a little too much, but we'll see. I mean, it's only the third game of the year. They do have the opportunity to improve. Yeah, no, I agree, Tyler. Horrible throws. I think I would say he was marginally better in the second half. But he wasn't. He wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. He was better. He didn't force anything. When he was on the run, he looked for the check down guy. He looked for the short intermediate passing game a little bit more. So he definitely was better, but he wasn't near championship level. Rattler is struggling. Yeah, and I think that's consistent when he's, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if it's just he has so much trust in his arm. He has so much trust in his guys to go get the ball. But he needs to revert back to his, the last 5-6 games of 2020, Spencer Rattler, because he's been early season, 2020 Spencer Rattler. So, the good thing is, you look at how bad that they have played offensively. It's just not clicked. Whatever you want to say in terms of the reason, but they are 3-0. I mean, I think that's the only really good thing that you can say about it. And I think I don't know why it's not clicking. I just don't. I mean, like I said, I think that they need to run the ball a little bit more than they have been in the past. Overall, I think they had, let's see how many. I mean, they ended up being pretty balanced. 35 rushes against 24 passes, but still, I think, how many of those were scrambles by Rattler and throwaways, or scrambles by Rattler and runs from himself. So, I think they need to lean on the running game a little bit as well. Greg, thanks for the comment here. Got to give props to Martinez. Yeah, he's much better. Watched him much better than he was game 1 against Illinois. That's just kind of an inexplicable loss for Nebraska. Watching them today, I know that Oklahoma didn't play well. I don't know how they lost that game. Watching what Nebraska throw out there today, plus watching who Illinois is now, losing 3 straight games, and then they lost last night. I believe it was to Maryland. So, yeah, it's hard to believe that they lost that game if you look at that game and looking at it now. Aside for the penalties for Nebraska, most of which were just guys being overly aggressive, I thought Nebraska played a decently physical game. Does excuse the Oklahoma performance. Agreed. Yeah, I thought they were physical. Definitely the more physical of the two teams. Honestly, Ryan, one of the things that I talked about in the pregame, what I thought was going to be a pretty big key to this game for Oklahoma was their ability to hold the line of scrimmage and be able to run the ball effectively. And they ran the ball for almost 200 yards. So I think there wasn't a whole lot of possessions. There was a lot of long possessions by both teams. And, Oklahoma, Nebraska ran the ball for 2.5 yards per carry, Oklahoma 5.5 yards per carry. So I think those are solid numbers. I think Oklahoma running the ball like that throughout the remainder of the year will be, but I do think that they need to lean on the running game and play Jaden Knowles a little bit, maybe more. If you feel like you can't you can't give Eric Gray and Kennedy Brooks 20 carries apiece. Let Jaden Knowles come in there a little bit. I do think they need to rely on that run game right now while Rattler's still kind of trying to figure it out. A win is a win. Trust me, they will get better. I agree. Yeah, I would assume that they would get better. Most teams do, and I think most you've seen this over the last few years that Oklahoma's not always been a team that has started strong, but they've finished a lot stronger, at least in the Big 12 season. So I certainly would expect this team to get better. Absolutely. The question is, how much better can they get? Can they get to Alabama's level? Can they get to Georgia's level? Even Clemson's level, Texas A&M, those types of teams. Can they get to that level? I don't know. I mean, I think it's something that certainly remains to be seen. But as of right now, it's a big question mark on how good they can be, without a doubt. Plays need to do more better options available down field. Yeah, I mean, I think that he, in a lot of areas, he just forced it. Yeah, unbelievable catch. I see a lot of people talking about, he should have knocked the ball down. You get yourself in that situation, you're in the heat of the moment. I don't really have a problem at all with him, making that play. And one of the best catches that you'll see ever, especially from a defensive back. I think that's it was just a tremendous play. Yeah, I mean, you saw that in some of the early on in some of the Sooner Sports, Oklahoma's fall stuff where he made some just outstanding plays on balls, and yeah, I think that's a really huge win, or a really huge catch, and a really huge play for Oklahoma there. Yep, OU doesn't like physicality. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I think they responded fairly well to that. Specifically in the trenches. I think that's, but I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Philip. And I think Oklahoma needs to continue to lean on that running game a little bit more until you can trust. At this point, I don't completely trust Rattler to make the best decision. So I would lean on the run game a lot more. I agree with you, Philip. I worry about some of the great big lady linemen might trip over each other and hurt themselves. OU play a ranked West Virginia next week. They just beat Virginia Tech. Yeah. I don't know if they'll be ranked. I do. I mean, it'll be close. They probably will. Patrick, I know that they are. They lost that opening game to Maryland there. Let me see. Let me see here where they would be at in kind of the extended rankings for West Virginia. There, my computer load here. I don't know if anyone was watching any of the other games, but in a losing effort, Michigan State beat Miami 38-17. But Charleston Rambo had at one time like 150 yards and two touchdowns for. Let's look at West Virginia here. Yeah, West Virginia didn't have any votes whatsoever, even in the extended top 25. As I look here, So, I mean, I don't know that they'll actually be ranked. I mean, a lot of it will depend on what some of these other teams do for sure. But I don't know that West Virginia will be ranked, but they will be, again, maybe they're a better team than Nebraska. I don't know that I will say um, much better, but will be better, definitely. When will Bowman be back? Anyone know? I haven't heard. I know obviously he was out for today's game. One of the things Riley said that he felt like if this game was on Monday and Tuesday that he might be good to go. Of course, you never know listening to Riley if that's just coach speak or what that is. But I think those hamstrings are really interesting to see how long it takes them to recover. I think when you look at those things can recover pretty quickly, or they can be something lingering all year long. So I hope for him and the Oklahoma back into the Oklahoma defense that it's really important for him to get back to where he was, for Oklahoma, definitely. If you guys are watching, Alabama's already up 7-0 on Florida. It looks like Cincinnati's going to win that game against Indiana. They're up 38-24. Really played much better in the second half after struggling through a big part of the first half. Yeah, Tyler. Last defensive, and they were like that against Tulane as well. So this defensive line, and they weren't bad at all throughout the game. There were some areas of the game where they weren't able to get as much pressure as you would have liked, but I think, if you said that Nick Benito was the best player on this Oklahoma team, I don't think you could get a whole lot of argument from me or really anyone that's watched Oklahoma this year. He's been all over the place. I don't know how many. I believe before that those last few plays, Oklahoma had either 4 or 5 sacks on the day. I don't remember. I'll have to look here, see if I can see some of the stats. I think Oklahoma probably had 5 or 6 sacks on the game, so that and they were close a few more times. So defensive line remains the strength of this team, just in general. I think by a pretty far margin. So I think that defensive line is going to have to continue to play really well for for the Sooners as well. Question shovel pass. I do too, Ryan. I mean, the first one, they ran it once. I'm trying to remember exactly when that was. I think in the first half, they ran it one time and it wasn't successful. I think down near the goal line, and then I thought that third down play call. I think I like the call to run the ball and not throw the ball there, but I think that I would much rather have the ball in Kennedy Brooks' hands or Eric Gray's hands, or having as opposed to a shovel pass with Jeremiah Hall. I think he outthought himself there as well. Yeah, absolutely agree. Raym was really good at the center position today for Oklahoma. He didn't start. Conjal started at least the first couple of drives, and then Raym came in, I think, in the first quarter and played really well for Oklahoma. I didn't see many offensive linemen shuffling in and out of that game. I don't. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember seeing Wanye Morris very much, if at all. I mean, even spelling anybody at the tackle position. So I don't remember seeing anyone after Raym came in. I don't remember them shuffling guys in and out. I mean, if they did, it was sparingly. Yeah, that's concerning, Patrick. Only 2 plays. I'm sorry, in 3 games over 30 yards. It's concerning. I think it's concerning for a team as much talent as they have on the offensive side of the ball. Mims is struggling. Do you think we're missing Rambo? I don't really think so. I think that of all the problems offensively, I don't think it's receiver. maybe a little bit in terms of a down the field threat, but I think you've got to be in a position where and look what Tulane did, look what Nebraska both did. They played a very soft zone at times, and they just dared Oklahoma to run the ball. And I don't think it's because I think opposing teams don't feel like Oklahoma has enough patience to run the ball consistently down the field. They want the big play. And so that's the thing that with both Lincoln Riley and the team overall, I think they're going to have to make the change from a philosophical perspective to run the ball more often than they have in the past, without a doubt. King Leash, whenever Oklahoma wins big, they didn't play anyone when they win close games. It's Oklahoma almost lost. Can be perfect every game. They're dominant on both sides of the ball. Your comments well taken just in terms of that, but I think Oklahoma's played two teams with a pulse this year, and they've won those games by a combined 12 points, in which they were favored by 22 points here. And you guys correct me, I think it was in the 30s against Tulane. So, you don't see Alabama struggling against those teams that they should win. They should beat easily. I mean, last week you look at Georgia against UAB, who was a solid Group of Five team. They won that game convincingly, dominated the game. I think at one point they were up like 49-0, 56-0, something like that. So I think they've got to get to a position where they are dominant in the games that they should be dominant against. You're going to have a couple of bad games, but I expected after Oklahoma struggled against Tulane, not to be perfect, but to be much better than they were today. Very disappointed at kind of the consistency of this team right now. Let's see. Getting Theo will make a difference. I don't know why Stogner has it. Yeah, I mean, Stogner I don't know if he's not healthy or, he's still dealing with the effects of, of everything, the staph infection, of everything he went through last year. And that could very well be the case, but Oklahoma's not really getting any of the tight ends involved very much. Very limited throws to the H-back tight end perspective, whether you're talking about Braid Willis, Austin Stogner, or even Jeremiah Hall. I know that he got the touchdown today, but it's really not as much passing, short, intermediate. I think he's just going for the jugular too much right now. Take the win, national title level, not yet for sure. Agreed, Tyler. I think, you have to be happy with the wins, but you have to understand that these teams have the ability to get better. So it's not time to hit the panic button just yet. But I think you wonder how much better can they be. I think defensively, I think they can get to a national championship caliber defense. There's some improvement they need to make on the back end, but I think the defensive line gives them the ability to be a championship contending team, but their offense needs to get much better. I would definitely agree they can get much better. Jimmy would put Oklahoma at 8, Tyler, Oklahoma at 7, 1 after 10, a 10% chance. Patrick, give Caleb a try. He's very good for a freshman, and I think, I'm closer to saying that could be something that they think about. Like I said, if Oklahoma happens to, over the next 2 games against West Virginia and Kansas State, if they happen to lose one of those games, or Rattler continues the bad play down the field in terms of decision making, I think that could be a possibility that they look at. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just been a big struggle so far for whatever reason. Bella and Mary, thank you. Yes, I would graciously accept your donations, whatever it is. So thank you for the comment. Thank you for joining and listening. So absolutely, I'm going to hold you to that $1. I'll track that throughout the rest of the rest of the show here, and make sure that this is not a joke. Depth at the D line show today. Some dudes are ready there. I think one of the things I thought they were all good. I thought Isaiah Thomas wasn't as good as we've seen him. Missed a couple of sacks that he could have had. He did have, I think he had a half of a sack, but yeah, Isaiah Coe in the middle is. And you look at Josh Ellison in the middle, Reggie Grimes on the outside. He had a sack today as well. I think defensive line is the strongest. Is the strongest position unit on this team. I still will say that. Rattler just doesn't have the it factor we're used to. That's fair. I mean, I think that's fair. He's definitely on and off. He's definitely inconsistent, I think. But let's see. Let's see. I mean, you've got 2 games here. I mean, if it happens again, I think you've got a trend. 2 games you could put it down to just bad decisions and things like that. However, if it keeps happening again, I think you have to look at it as possibly exactly what you're saying, Sean. Is he just doesn't have it, and it's going to be a struggle for him to be the guy that everybody thinks and hopes that he can be. And I think the other thing to think about for Rattler as well is in this quarterback room, if Oklahoma continues to not play well as an offensive unit, Rattler still does not play well. I think for all of us watching, I think there was almost a foregone conclusion that Oklahoma would that Oklahoma would have Rattler, whether he wins the Heisman or not, whether Oklahoma won a national championship or not. I think it was a foregone conclusion that Rattler would leave after the end of this year and then go to the NFL, and then really just kind of pave the way for this to be Caleb Williams' team. I don't know that when you look early on, you can't really say that that's accurate because he hasn't, and I don't know if he slipped in the draft boards or not, but he hasn't played well at all thus far. So I think it's going to be interesting to see can he get it together. Is Rattler playing bad, or are the receivers not playing good? I think, and I need to preface this with Rattler. I mean, I think he's on the money with most of his passes. I think more than anything, there's 2 things that, to me, that he struggles with. I think he struggles with he trusts his arm and maybe his receivers a little too much and tries to fit it into tight windows, but and then sometimes I think he is very quick to leave the pocket and he doesn't step up when he has time. So he needs to be able to trust the pocket. And these are 2 things that he struggled with and was his big area of improvement that he needed to make coming out of last year, coming into this year. It is not really he's not really looked much different. So I think it's more of him and bad decision making rather than the receivers not playing well. Yeah, I agree, Patrick. I think we have a lot of talent at the defense. I'm sorry, not the defense. I think we have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. Yeah, we don't have a CeeDee Lamb, and we probably don't have a Hollywood Brown just yet. I mean, I think Mario Williams can get there, and he's really exciting and a really good player. But I don't think he. I don't think they have that difference maker. However, I think they have 4 or 5 really good ones and good ones that you even win a championship with, without a doubt. Defense is not the problem. Offense is very explosive. Number 2, no 2-back set really seems a little like a conservative coach. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Weston. And I think one of the things I'd worried worried about. Does Riley, does it come to a point where, and I know that there's some head coaches that still do a really good job at calling the plays, and I think, and I wonder if Riley would ever trust anyone else to be a play caller, or even bring in an offensive coordinator, or let someone like Cale Gundy do that, and that he's not been willing to do in the past. And I think, does it hurt his ability to be a head coach and manage the game if he's, being the quarterback coach, being the offensive coordinator, calling plays? So I don't know. That's one of the things that I've wondered over the last couple of years. And he has been very conservative and not had as much of a killer instinct as you would like, your offensive coordinator and your head coach to see. Rock, thanks for the question, or thanks for the comment. Finally, a decent D, and now the O is struggling. I mean, that's very, very, very accurate. I think, one of the things that's Oklahoma hasn't had since Riley's been here over the last 5 or 6 years, consistently complementary units to give to one another. Either when the offense has been really good, the defense has struggled, or to your point, vice versa here. And, if they can ever put it together to play well on both sides of the ball consistently, this is a team that I still think has the talent to compete for a championship this year. Whether they will or not remains to be seen, but I think they have the talent that they can. They just have to go do it. Yeah, I was impressed with Isaiah Coe today, Jimmy. He was all over the backfield all game long. So definitely was a factor. He's going to be a factor, absolutely. I think Oklahoma's hit the home run with their last 2 or 3, really, when you think about Josh Ellison as well. Junior college defensive linemen. They've done really well with Perry Elementary and all of that group. So I think he's going to be a really big time player. Tucker Jones, thanks for the comment. As an OU fan that lives in West Virginia, quarterback play is not good for West Virginia. Through an interception that almost cost them the game. If they are like last year, the offense doesn't travel with them and play good defense. Yeah, I think West Virginia will provide a little bit of a stiffer challenge, specifically defensively for Oklahoma to contend with. So I think they have a challenge on their hands coming in for West Virginia coming in here next weekend, which will be a night game, a 6:30 p.m. Game on ABC, I believe that is. Let's see what other comments. If they can stop the run, they should be good. Yeah, I think that's fair. OU's best QB is on the sideline. Rattler's draft stock is dropping further each game. I think that's fair. I don't know if I would say necessarily their best quarterback is on the sideline, but we may get the opportunity to see that without a doubt. Have to wonder if Riley is saving plays, or is he seeing that Spencer isn't playing well? Maybe it was a defensive scheme. And I think that, Greg, the defensive scheme was laid out pretty early, after that first drive when Oklahoma went, right down the field against Nebraska. Nebraska went into more of a soft zone. Oklahoma really didn't respond or react to that very well. It took them, maybe a quarter and a half to almost 2 quarters to figure that out. So I think Oklahoma has to be patient enough to know that if these teams are playing soft zone, your offensive line is good enough to run the football. 5.5 yards per carry is good against a Power 5, good solid defense in what Nebraska has. Keep in mind their defense gave up 5. There was a stat on the game that early in the game that they've given up a total of 5. They've averaged 5 points per game given up the last 2 games, 7 against Fordham and 3 against Buffalo. So this was not a bad defense, but Oklahoma didn't take advantage of what they had available to them. Yep, you absolutely are right. They've got to be patient enough to stay with the running game until the defense forces you to do something different. Shuffle those guys in and out and keep running the ball. Absolutely, Ryan. Uh, yeah, I I saw another comment about holding the playbook. I don't put much stock into that anymore. I mean, Riley's been with Oklahoma for such a long time that there's not a whole lot to hold back. There's so much film that you can watch over the past few years there where if they're holding the playbook back and you've got 23 points, I think you need to reevaluate how you're coaching this team. If that's the case, that's it's pretty. Yeah, that's just. I would hope that that's not the case. If that is the case, then you're playing with fire, in my opinion. If you keep holding if you're holding back and you're holding the playbook back and you're not doing, everything that you need to be doing to win games in a dominating fashion, then you're 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 not putting your kids in the best position to be successful. Is what I would say. Nelson Express, thanks for joining. Haven't seen any dual running back sets. Makes me wonder if Riley's holding back because of the running back. I think that's absolutely right. I think we would have, if the depth would have been better, I think we would have seen more two running back sets for Oklahoma. And maybe at some point he just says that Riley just said we have to do it. We have to quit playing scared and play like we're going to play like we want to win a national championship versus play like we're scared to get a running back hurt. So injuries can happen all the time. You hope they don't happen, but yeah, I think you're right. Ballyhoo, I think I was that was funny because I remember seeing that a couple of weeks ago, with that simulation game earlier in the year, and yeah, I mean it was very, very close. Throw your cash app up. Thanks, Tyler. Crypto Badger, thanks for the donation. Really, really appreciate that. Husker fan here. Good game, Oklahoma. Outside looking in on your team. That O line needs work, and D needs to keep that hunker. Good for the rest of the season. So thanks. I appreciate the thing, brother. Absolutely. I think, yeah, offensive line. I don't think was a big problem the entire game. Obviously, they could be better, but I don't think that they. I don't think that they were horrible. I think the D in the back end definitely needs some improvement. But yeah, good luck to Nebraska. I think it was cool that this game happened again. I think the only other thing that you could play a card as part of this game is rivalry games. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, even though these teams haven't played in 11 years, it's still an outstanding and really exciting rivalry just to watch. And so yeah, I mean, I think that's, you never know what can happen. But thanks for the contribution, Crypto Badger. Really appreciate that. Riley needs to bench Rattler like he did. Give it some time to see if offense picks up. Yeah, I said that towards the end of the first half to see if that might be an option that Oklahoma does. It didn't end up doing it, but it could be something that happens if Rattler continues to struggle like he has. Rattler might have some choke in him, doesn't have that gamer in him so far. I think that's true. And everything that we're talking about today, I think it's a fair. I mean, the backup quarterback, specifically at Oklahoma, is the most popular kid on the team. I remember, when in Jalen Hurts' year that he was here, a lot of people clamoring for Rattler to get a chance. So, I mean, I think it would be interesting to see. Certainly wouldn't want to see anyone get hurt. Absolutely not. If Caleb Williams had to insert himself into a game here just to see what he looks like, see how he looks in a game like situation, because you never know. I mean, look at Dak Prescott in the NFL. He got his opportunity because Tony Romo was injured, and he never looked back. You never know. One of those kids could take the game over, and never look back. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what it looks like for Oklahoma. But a big week of practice for them. They've got to get a lot better going into West Virginia and then Kansas State and then Texas. Like I said, it gets better every single week. And the one thing that you can say about this game is they won. They didn't lose, very similar to Tulane 2 weeks ago. But you've got to make a lot of improvements in the areas that we've talked about as well. Ryan Spencer was 24 of 34, not that bad. I think maybe the Nebraska D isn't getting enough credit. It's not what we're accustomed to at OU. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair. I think the accuracy is not in question at all for me, Ryan. I think he was almost 80% completion percentage coming into this game. I think 78. So, and then today, what was he? 24 out of 34. So not quite as efficient, but he's still good. So I think the completion percentage and the accuracy is there. It's just decision making. And you're right. You're absolutely right. No one knows how good Caleb Williams. I mean, I think a lot of people think that he will be good, especially in time, but no one knows exactly how good he is or how good he can be right now. So I know that a lot of things that I heard early on that said they felt comfortable should they need to go with Caleb Williams, but obviously, you never know until he's thrust into a big time game in a big moment. So, if he can just improve the decision making, I think, and take the short passes, and even and if he needs to scramble to take a couple yard gain, or if he needs to get out of the pocket and throw the ball away as opposed to forcing the ball. Absolutely. Are the wide receivers getting open, or the play calling sucks? I don't know, Jim. I mean, I think the guys were the receivers were open, so I don't really think it's a issue of that. And I think another thing that you kind of bring that you can bring up here is yes. At the end of the day, Oklahoma's 3-0, and I think, Tyler, this is another thing that caught my eye as I was, answering that or talking about that last one is the running backs. I think Eric Gray really struggled in game one. He's been much better. I think, I think there's some struggle again in pass protection. Nothing bad. I mean, I don't think, Oklahoma. I don't think there was any sacks. So far this year, I'm trying to remember if Oklahoma's even given up a sack this year. So I think the pass protection is good enough. Yeah, there's some issues that they've seen a little bit on pass protection from the running back position, but I think, it's been good enough. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. It's just, it doesn't have the same continuity. It doesn't have the same flow, but they can get there. I think interesting game against West Virginia. We'll obviously break that down, but I guess we'll see. We'll see how it goes and see if Oklahoma is able to learn from this and get better from this overall. So again, Alabama is just dominating early on, 21-3 first quarter. So you compare, if you're Oklahoma, you compare yourself. You have to compare yourself against Alabama, because that's where you want to be. Maybe not necessarily consistently, and that's who you're battling against now. And you sure as hell are going to battle against them in the SEC. So when you look at that, Alabama's at 21-3 in the first quarter on the road against number 11 Florida. Florida may not be great, but they're still number 11 in the country, a better team than Nebraska. Bryce Young, 12 out of 16, 138 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in one quarter of play. So again, that just shows where Oklahoma needs to be and where they're not at right now, either at the quarterback position or at overall as a team. And right now, there's still a lot of season to be played, but Bryce Young is the prohibitive favorite for the Heisman, and he's maybe even a little bit running away with it at this point. So we'll see how that continues to go. So just look at the Big 12 a little bit as a whole. Overall, they've got some games later on right now. Right now, Nevada and Kansas State are tied at 17. Carson Strong, 15 out of 21, 151 yards, and an interception for Nevada. Really good game there on ESPN Plus. Baylor's up 14-0 early on Kansas. No big surprise there. Obviously, Kansas is what they are. West Virginia 27-21 over Virginia Tech. Just kind of looking at West Virginia for the opponent next week for Oklahoma. A good team, obviously. Overall, they played really well last week against, of course, Long Island University. Of course, that was very similar to what Oklahoma played against Western Carolina. But, you look at a guy that's very similar to an Adrian Martinez for West Virginia, in the fact that when you look at Jarrett Doege for West Virginia, who's not a great guy, he's not a great player. He definitely is more of a statue out there, but he's, great, good, but not great. Today he was, 15 out of 26, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. From a running game perspective, Letty Brown's one of the better running backs in the Big 12. 19 carries for 161 yards and a touchdown but he had one 80-yard play, so you got 18 carries for 80 yards the rest of the time. So, and then you've got a couple of Big 12 games later on this evening, as you have Florida International going to Texas Tech, Rice going to Texas, and then one of the most interesting, I think, Big 12 games of the day is you have Oklahoma State and Boise State. Oklahoma State, if you want to find a silver lining here, if you're Oklahoma, you look at Oklahoma State. They're 2-0, but they have struggled mightily in their games. You could even say they're fortunate enough to not be 0-2 right now. And then as a nightcap, Iowa State plays UNLV. So interesting games in the Big 12 today. Overall, kind of looking at where the country is right now. Notre Dame's up 10-3 over Purdue at the half. Tulsa is hanging tough with Ohio State. Ohio State may still be reeling just a little bit after last week's game. Still tied at 3 early on in that game. SMU and Louisiana Tech, which is a battle of previous Oklahoma quarterbacks. And when you look at Tanner Mordecai for SMU, and then you look at Austin Kendall for Louisiana Tech. So SMU's played well early on. They're 2-0 as well. Tanner Mordecai's got, he's outperforming Spencer Rattler at this point in the season. Granted, the competition may be considered a little bit different, but Mordecai's 12 out of 16 for 113 yards and a touchdown today thus far. Let's see what else games we've got live going on of interest. A ton of great games right now. Washington State's up 7-0 on USC. USC, a team is in shambles right now. Clemson's up only 7-0 on Georgia Tech midway through the second quarter. Again, one of the things that we talk about here is there's so much parity in the game this year. Clemson is not as good, specifically offensively, that they've been in the past. When you look at Ohio State, they're struggling early on. Cincinnati struggled. Texas A&M struggled last week. So there's a lot of teams that are struggling, early on in the season. So, I think it'll, be interesting to see if that parity continues to, present itself throughout the season. So let's see. That's about all the games of interest, I think, right now. Like I said, Baylor's up 14-0 and driving again here in about midway through the second quarter. Tulsa has the ball right now at the Ohio State 18-yard line, 2nd down and 9. So yeah, lots of good action going on right now. And you guys tell me who is, and we'll get to this, 15 hours straight of college football for you guys to watch throughout the day for you. But who's the truest college football fan in here? Hawaii hosts San Jose State, kicks off at 11:30 p.m. Central. Who's going to stay up and watch that game if it's a good game? Who's going to stay up and watch? Me, I love this time of the year. Even if Oklahoma struggles a little bit, love the ability to watch games, great games. There's a lot of good games that we've seen so far. After we get done, I'll probably start going to check out this Alabama-Florida game a little bit, and then Nevada and Kansas State, is a close game here for the Big 12. So yeah, I think the last comment here, West Virginia might be to me. It could be. I don't know. I don't know if he'll be enough, but Spencer has to get better quickly. He has to get a lot better, a lot quicker, a lot better. Just decision making. I think that's the big. NIL has more interest in game day and Riley not being aggressive. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the NIL, and I think, and I didn't pay attention to it as much as maybe I should, but I know that Rattler was involved in another car deal or something this week. So, yeah, I mean, I think it just shows some of these kids, maybe their head's not really where they're supposed to be, and it's so hard to, if you're not focused, to just immediately turn it on. So with that, we'll just conclude today. Thanks everybody for joining. I think we had over 50, maybe almost 60 at one point today. So thanks for being here. As I mentioned earlier, we will have an after further review. I'll probably do that on Monday. Have some prior commitments that I'm not going to be able to go through, or to go through that tomorrow. However, we'll probably do that at some point Monday. Remember to tune in Wednesday at 11:30 here on this channel. We will talk. We'll do a little bit more of a reaction, late reaction to this game with Mark Rogers Wednesday at 11:30 here on this channel, and then we'll look ahead to West Virginia, and then obviously next Saturday we'll do. Next Saturday we'll have our post game coverage as always. So thanks for being here. Thanks for all of your support. Really love doing this with you guys. Each and every week. Like I said, don't forget to follow me, Twitter at JasonRay1. We have a lot of good work there at Last Word on Sports College Football that we'll have. We have Oklahoma covered, the Big 12, the national scene. So thanks everybody for joining and being here, and look forward to talking to you soon. Boomer Sooner.